Hello, good morning, everyone, and everyone here and everyone there, everyone in between. Thank you very much uh, joining me and everyone in the Sangha to our regular Sunday morning calm abiding meditation and followed by Dharma talk. So please stay very present and bring your very good altruistic intention, but most importantly, the attention to remember what to focus your mind to and what skills and technique you use, and so calmly stay fully present in the motionless posture and undistracted attention and an intention that is not selfish but altruistic, a technique that is not, something sporadic, but something you have heard and learned and you remember how to use, and that has depth and penetration in your application, so that your meditation is not drifting into dullness or distraction or daydreaming. Not that we intend to do that, but it's like the rainwater. It's if unless there's a good gutter, it just falls all over the place. So that's why it's very important to have that guarding technique. To do that, we should develop our inspiration and devotion to the Triple Gem, and a good cause to do this for the benefit of all sentient beings. So to remind us of this as a motive to practice throughout, we do the Refuge and Four Immeasurables prayers, and join your hands in the heart. Think of every sentient being and for their benefit. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Sangha Ajere Vidya Dharma Bhavaja Ajendala Ajare Vadavadrubya Endabu Dhamma Sangha Ajere Vidya Bhavaja Ajendala Ajare Vadavadrubya Endabu Dharma Sangha Ajere Vidya Bhavaja Ajendala Ajare Vadavadrubya. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know apart from the happiness that know no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know apart from happiness that know no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell unity, free from attachment and aversion to the near and far. So now we'll do the meditation. Please stay very present in one pointed concentration. First, make sure the posture is guarded, not leaning, not moving, having a very straight back and good posture. Stay very focused in keeping the body calm and unagitated. Then only the body is the container. If the sense doors are always stimulated, thinking or looking, your concentration would not stay. So that's why the container should be placed stable in place that is still. That's why the Buddha went all the way, leaving out of the palace, going out of every town and place of business, and went far in the forest. And even our daily practice, we should choose a place and time when it's quietest and most peaceful. And most people are blessed to have their space completely undisturbed. So don't make a habit of putting your pets next to you, all of that. I don't know how they do the meditation. Even though you like to nurse your pet, but I'm sure there are other places and spaces the meditation can be incorporated in holding pat on the lap. So use your technique of one pointed object of meditation. It doesn't have to be just one. The posture or the breath, counting forward or reverse. It could be on bodhicitta. It could be on your awareness of how fortunate you have been in your life. It could be awareness of the impermanence of all things. You just choose to focus on that to bring clarity. So your mind is not drifting away, because if it does, you will notice you have lost your concentration. You're calm enough to know you are drifting or dull. So I use the gong to make our meditation in 3 slots, and during each slot try to stay very present, don't compromise. And then after each slot, should you need a short mini break, you can do so. Then otherwise, to reinforce the very concentration, to develop one pointed ekagrata. So now I'm doing a continuation of the topic of Buddhism before Nalanda Panditas. We have done already 3 sessions before, and because it's such a long span of time, from the Buddha until Nalanda Panditas, it at least 700 to 900 years. So we cannot not understand what happened, who played what role to continue the Dharma up until giving the inspiration to build Nalanda University and produce all of those great masters. So last week we finished going over until the fifth patriarch Didika, who converted thousands of people who were going off the track by resorting to animal sacrifice and worshipping sun and various kind of pseudo spiritual practices. So we are talking that 230, before Christ. So today we're going to go over. I'm largely relying this on the historical text, most reliable and important historical text written by the celebrated Tibetan monk called Chonang Taranatha. Chonang Taranatha is a 17th century great scholar who became one of the key upholders of the Chonangpa tradition. In Tibet, there are 8 very big pillars of Dharma. Chonang is one of them. Somehow the 4 traditions of Tibetan Buddhism we have right now does not include Chonang. But technically, Chonang was an offshoot of Sakyapa lineage. Because Sakyapa lineage came in early 11th century, remember? And during the 15th, 16th century, Sakyapa grew so big that its disciples formed their own sub-tradition. And Gelugpa is one of them. Chonangpa is one of them. Puluk is one of them. And of course, Sakya itself. So the 8 pillars are mostly related to Sakya. The other 2 being Nyingma and Kagyu. So when we look at Chonangpa is a very interesting school. And anyway, we won't go into it. But Taranatha wrote this history of Buddhism in India, And then he goes into great length in what happened in the early period. So today we're going to go on the account of the period of King Ashoka. When King Ashoka, we're talking about 230 before Christ. Okay, so you got to really put in context who came when, what was the state of Buddhism in India. When the 5th Patriarch Didika was looking after the Dharma, and he's the head of the Dharma, and that time King Ashoka was just a youth. And so King Ashoka is said to be one of the very notable king of Maurya dynasty, and this king, his father had 500 ministers, great wealth, and mostly ruled northern India, and he had many queens, and particularly he also had 6 special princes. The 6th one is called Kanaka. And later on, this king united with his wife of a merchant, so he had an extramarital affair. The king, I think, they I don't know whether they called those days. It became one of the concubines, and she conceived a child. The king's mother died on the day. Then the morning day was on the morning day was over. The merchant's wife gave birth to a son, and that meant that the period of the mourning was over. So therefore, they called the boy Ashoka. Ashoka means it's the sorrow is over. Sorrow is over. So Ashoka means sorrowless. Usually, a kind of a birth brings some joy, and particularly if it came after the mourning period of someone, a birth of someone would compensate the sorrow, doesn't it? So anyway, Ashoka is named after the period of mourning or sadness was over because he's born on the day when the period of mourning came to an end. So he assumed the name Ashoka, So, sometimes people are named after some people, or, the grandparents or whatever. Sometimes people are named after some events or some important experiences. So you wouldn't believe how many times Ashoka name has changed over the period. Anyway, to begin with, it was a good name. At the beginning, it was a good name. On growing up, he became very learned in many arts, and he became very good at writing, reading, all kinds of art, and the ministers always checked with the astrologers which of one of the king's sons should be his successor, but of course the extramarital affair child is less likely to be a suitable candidate because there are already other many senior brothers from the official wife. However, the astrologer answered that he who eats best food, wears the best clothes, sits on best seats, who's most learned in many art and language and so on, he should be the one. That's what the astrologers recommended. So on being confidently inquired by two of the foremost ministers, it was told that the best food was the one who best food and best clothes were meant the coarse ones, and the best seat was the ground. Since the other sons of the king lived a life in luxury, while Ashoka came from a very ordinary mother's glass, food and clothes, it was known that Ashoka was going to be the most suitable candidate to succeed his father. Meanwhile, people of the in the northern part of India is not far from the foothills of the Himalayas and Nepal. It is said that there was actually, it is said those days, even those parts of Nepal were under his father's domain, and there was a lot of kind of revolts happening in those areas. And then young Prince Ashoka was sent to quell those troubles, and he did so without any, he subdued everyone in the hilly regions, imposed heavy levy and annual tax on them, and realized that how effective he was to impose the rules of the land to the unruly subjects. He became very obvious kind of a successor. King said, "I'm highly pleased with your intelligence, mighty and bravery. I shall give you whatever you want." So his father said, "I will give you." Then Ashoka said, "My brothers here are going to harm me." So there was a rivalry between the brothers, he says. Therefore, please give me the city of Pataliputra. Pataliputra is the ancient city, right these days called Patna, a very big city. And so he says, give me the city of Pataliputra and my own place along with the other things that I need. So he wanted to really get away from his brothers, so he wanted to rule that area. And his father granted all his wishes. In this city were built 500 gardens, thousands of celestial musical players all day and night. And so his desires were all fulfilled, and he was known to be indulging in all kinds of pleasure and entertainments all the time, because the city is so beautiful and it has some of the best musicians in town. Anyway, at that time, the neighboring kingdom, Magadha's king, had died. And though he had 12 sons, none of them could retain the kingdom when he placed on the throne. So his Brahmin minister ruled it for a few years. During that time, there developed enmity between him and Ashoka's father. So in long-drawn battle fought between the banks of River Ganges, because River Ganges was flowing through the on the west banks of city of Pataliputra. The 6 elder sons of the king took part in the war, and at that time, unfortunately, Ashoka's father had died. Considering the news of his father's death might boost of the morale of the Magadhans, this was kept suppressed, and the administration of the kingdom was carried out by 2 ministers. However, since the 7th day, people of the city came to know all about this, so they start disobeying the 2 ministers. So now is the time of the prediction of the Brahma to come true. Just thinking they invite Ashoka and install him on the throne. So that means Ashoka became not only king of his land, but also the neighboring kingdom was then annexed. So those days, you remember, India wasn't one big country. It was many small principalities, maybe small districts, and every small principalities was ruled. So in this way, while conquering Magadha, on each of the on Magadha, and possessing all the wealth of the Magadha, they then Ashoka naturally become the king, and on receiving this news, the other people in the big cities like Rajgriha and others, and those which belong to modern Bengal, in those days it's called Anga, they all fell into Ashoka's domain as well. So Ashoka was just basically parading everywhere and conquering all neighboring countries, and he was killing thousands, and his all brothers were killed because he was, and then he earned the name Kala Ashoka. Kala Ashoka means evil Ashoka. Evil because he was not only so powerful and destructive, but he was so merciless in fighting and killing. He killed all his six brothers, and 500 ministers. They were the old ministers of his father. He also attacked many other cities and whole territory in the Himalaya, and he became very arrogant and cruel, and he never, in spite of his ability to conquer many lands and enemies, his mind had no peace, and even without having to do any violent action, he was never at peace. He was still very agitated, unhappy. every day, for no reason, he would order his minister to punish someone, so nobody, for no reason. He just wanted to see his people suffer. Killing and beating was all thing that chaining and things were. So that's why he earned the name Kala Ashoka. Kala means black or the evil. So he was, before he was Ashoka, the sorrowless one. Now he's the evil one who brings sorrow to everyone. he was the evil one who brings sorrow to everyone. So there are many accounts of how aggressive and how cruel Ashoka was. And then here Taranatha, the historian, says, I will not elaborate on many more legends because they're all same. They're all just one after another. He just destroyed, killed, and tortured all the neighboring kingdoms. Because he was mainly led by false knowledge of the Brahmin god worship. They always please the god by bloodletting. The more you kill, in thinking you are blessed and empowered by God, he thinks that is some kind of a great kind of blessings of the god. Because there were this kind of wrong doctrine saying, if you perform this at the request of your teacher and fulfill his wishes, then you will be powerful. If you kill many and strew the blood, and you will get all the power of everyone who you killed. This kind of wrong doctrine was very widespread in India. That's why the king was engaged in some kind of the wrong doctrine of spirituality. It's saying that if you perform a sacrifice of 10,000 human beings, your empire will expand. You will also attain liberation. This kind of violence, encourage spirituality. And then, because he heard this, he deliberately built a sacrificial house, and where people were brought in and killed and tortured, and there was a special ceremony how the blood was used to strew on the statue, and so on. So therefore, it was just so much slaughtering everybody and killing thousands. King himself became a devotee of goddess Uma. That's a Hindu goddess. And the goddess Uma is always one who's drinking blood of those creatures that are sacrificed to her. So after slaughtering 1,000 men, when this ruler was going somewhere outside the city, a monk, with the hope of changing this conduct, told him about the sin of killing animals and many details of the punishment given like this in the hell. However, the killer totally misunderstood all this as virtues, words, and thought, I have so long been killings by chopping off the heads of men. From what Bhikshu says, if it now appears that I can as well kill them in various other ways, like burning, cutting pieces off the skin, as the Bhikshu describes. So he, again, even those who came to give the correct teaching, he just misunderstood. So he continued to kill in so many ways. Thousands of people were slaughtered. So that's why then he earned another name. So Chandala Ashoka. Chandala means just Chandala means there's no really word for Chandala. Chandal means just fierce, yeah. Just you can say terrorist. He's just terrorist Ashoka. At that time, a disciple of one of the Arhat Koyasha entered the house by mistake. He was well versed in the scriptures, was placed on the throne, and then when the killer was about to strike him with sword, he inquired the cause. He says the killer, told him about what had happened before. So kill me for 7 days. I shall not move till then, and shall stay in the sacrificial house. When he said thus, the killer became agreed. Witnessing the sacrificial place full of blood, flesh, and bones, and also he directly realized the 16 truths, like impermanence and so on. Before the expiry of 7 days, he attained Arhathood. He also inquired the miraculous power. On the day of expiry of the 7 days, the killer thought, none like this had to enter in this house before. Therefore, I'm going to kill him anyway. Thus thinking, he filled an enormous cauldron with oil to put the novice in, and therefore tried to place on the fire. In spite of the fire burning for the whole day and night, not even the slightest damage was done to his body. The novice monk who was put in the cauldron couldn't be affected by the burning. On receiving this news, King was surprised, and he came to the house to watch himself. Killer ran towards him with the sword. King asked him the reason for this. The killer said, "O king, it is your own vow that anybody entering this house must be killed till the number reaches 10,000. The king said, "But then you yourself have entered this house before me. I must kill you first." While the two were thus arguing among themselves, the novice showed the miraculous power, like showering rain and causing lightning in the moving sky, etc. And both the king and the killer were full of great reverence and bowed down to his feet, and seed of enlightenment germinated in both of them. Then the novice delivered the sermon to the king, became very repentant of his sins, and at once demolished sacrificial house. He asked the novice how to atone for the sin. "O king, I'm incapable of telling you the means of atoning all your sins. In the Kukutarama in the east, there lives a Upadhyaya, Arhat, called Yashadwaja. Some people think it is Upagupta. Anyway, there are always different versions. So Upagupta was the fourth Patrika, remember, who will be able to tell you about the ways of atoning for your sins. Accordingly, the king sent the message to the Arhat, "O Arya, please come to Pataliputra to relieve me of my sins. If, O Arya, you cannot come, I shall go to you." Realizing that the arrival of the king himself would have meant harm to many people, Aryasha himself came to Pataliputra. There he delivered the sermon to the king during the day and during the night, and delivered sermons on the 4 classes of followers. So means novice, man or woman, and ordained monk and nun in the monastery. From the time of meeting the Aryasha, the king was full of great reverence and started spending day and night in pious acts. He worshipped 30,000 bhikshus every day. So those days there were lots of Buddhists. It's just that there was just kind of spread all kinds of false religion as well. From the time of meeting the Arhat, the king was full of reverence. And when Aryasha was living in other places like Magad, king sent 500 merchants to collect gems from his treasure land. Their voyage was successful, and they were returning with a cargo of various gems. When they halted for rest on the sides of the sea, the Nagas sent waves to carry away the merchandise. They had to return depending on other sources of livelihood. It was rumored in Pataliputra that the merchants were going to be back in 7 days. Since nobody heard about what actually had happened, all sorts of people, including the Brahmins, were collected to see the color and other wonderful qualities of the gems they brought. On the 7th day, when the king along with the people came to the garden, they saw the merchant returning only in the upper garments and looking very exhausted. Everybody was amazed by this unexpected sight and burst into laughter. King asked the cause of this. Merchants told their story that, "O Lord, if you do not take some measure to subdue the Naga, nobody from now on will be willing to go to collect the gems. O king, please take some measure." The king felt highly disturbed and consulted the wise men about possible measures. The Brahmins knew of none, but the Arhat, with six clairvoyants, taught the possible measure should be suggested in the form of prediction by a deity. If the Arhat does this, the people may take him as being partial to the bhikshus. Even the king feel more skeptical, and the Tirthika, the heretics, would slander. With this consideration, he said, "O great king, there certainly is a measure, but this will be predicted tonight by your tutelary deity." Early in the morning, king heard the tutelary deity residing there saying, "O king, worship the Buddha elaborately, the Nagas will be subdued." And then the tutelary deity residing below said, "O king, worship the Sanghas and Arhats, the Naga will be subdued." In the morning, the king got the people assembled together, told them about the prediction, and asked what should be done. The minister said, "Please ask the Arhat himself who foretold this yesterday." He was summoned and questioned. The Arhat taught, "Let me adopt some means of convincing them." He wrote on a small piece of copper plate, "O Nagas, listen to the command of King Ashoka. Return the merchants of the gem you have taken away," etc. And he threw the copper plate into the Ganges. On top of the lofty pillar stone at the broad crossroad of the city, he placed a pot made out of 8 semi-precious gems containing golden image of both the king and the Naga. On the next morning, it was found that the copper plate was thrown back to the gate of the king's palace by the storm. And the rain caused the furious Nagas that the king's image was bowing down before that of the Naga. On being questioned by the king, the Arhat said, "The accumulated merit of the Naga is at present greater than that of the king. For increasing your own merit, please worship the Buddha and the Sangha." King, feeling inspired, started the worship of the images and the stupas 7 times more than before. In a moment, the Arhat went to the realm of Nagas and the gods and invited the Arhat. King also built a big house for the festival. When the Arhat rang the Gandhi, which is bell, the Arhat assembled from the Mount Sumeru and surroundings. The king worshipped with all the requisites to the Sangha 60,000 Arhats for 3 months. During this period, the king's image raised itself gradually day by day, and 45 days became as high as that of the Nagas. After that, image of the Nagas went on stooping down every day, and on the next 45th day, it was found that image of the Naga was bowing down to the feet of the king's image. People were so full of great wonder. Such then is the result of worshipping the 3 jewels. When the same copper plate was again thrown into the Ganges, the messenger of Naga appeared in human guise on the next day and said, "Gems are deposited back on the seashore. Please send the merchants to bring these." The king was about to do so. The same Arhat said, "That will not be great wonder. Better send them the message that within 7 days they are to bring the gems here on their shoulders. There will be a great wonder." This being done on the 7th day, the king was surrounded by a large number of people. The Nagas, in the guise of merchants, brought the gems, touched the king's feet. It was great. It was a grand spectacle for people, and great festival was organized to celebrate it. The king became an adept in the magic spell of Yaksharatha, And this realized the 4th Division army of Yakshas with a horse as big as elephants, as man as tall as the tala trees. He brought under his rule without bloodshed all the countries, including those to the south in the Vindhya. He conquered the northern Himalayas, snowy ranges beyond Khotan, entire land of Jambudvipa, bound by sea in the east, south, west, and also 50 small islands. The Yasha then explained to him the prediction of the teacher Samyak Sambuddha that you were to decorate the surface of the earth with chaityas, stupas, containing the relics of the Tathagata. Now this is the beginning. This Yasha, or maybe Upagupta, told King Ashoka that your name has been predicted by the Buddha, that you will build so many stupas around the world that will totally revive the Dharma. So he felt the need finding the relics of the teacher. Because King Ashoka now need to find where are the relics. The relic which was received by King Ajatashatru, remember? King Ajatashatru was the king of Magadha, as his share was securely preserved, buried under the great Chaitya in Rajgriha. Rajgriha, probably near like what called a bamboo grove. The king and Arhat, along with the people, went there to recover it. Reaching the place, they dug the ground 3 men deep and saw burning iron wheel so swiftly turning around that it was not possible to go near it. So nobody could take it because it was some mysterious guarded by a turning wheel. On the advice of the local old women, they went to a hilly stream about 3 miles to the west. When the course of its flow was diverted, the wheel stopped turning. The fire on it got extinguished. So the wheel was turning because of the water coming. Yeah, this old woman knew the cause of the thing. After the ground was dug further, a copper plate was found containing the inscription, saying, "Herein lies the relic of the Tathagata." One big Magadhan drona in measure. Drona means like a big kind of measuring kind of thing. In the future, a certain poor king would dig it out. King will dig it out. Seeing this, Ashoka arrogantly thought, so the person to discover it cannot be myself, because he is supposed to be a poor one. Therefore, he must be someone else, somebody else. Thus he was about to return. However, being requested by the Arhat, he dug the ground again, 7 men deep, and at last found the relic, which was originally only one big Magadhan drona in measure, but had now increased in measure in 6-fold times. So what was before was increased 6 times. It was preserved in the innermost of 7 chests, placed one within the other, of which the outermost was made of iron. The chests were studded with self-radiating gems placed at the 4 corners. Each of these gems would illuminate as far as a mile. All these were arranged in the form of offering of light lamps. The value of each gem was so much that the entire property throughout the whole empire could not equal it. Knowing this, King's arrogance was quelled. He thought he was wealthy, most powerful, but when he saw these gems of the relics of the Buddha, he took only one big drona of the relic and kept the rest hidden as before. He took just one drona. Drona is a measure, and then left 5 in. Rediverted the hidden stream so that the iron wheel start revolving and fire burning as before. This was again covered up with earth. Employing the powerful yakshas as messengers, assistants, he sent out command to the people of different places, and only in the course of day and night they built chaitya. He built chaitya in holy places. Chaitas surrounding the Vajra Asana. That is Bodh Gaya. So some people say that the railing that you see immediately out around the big Mahabodhi temple, yeah, that big stone railings were all built by King Ashoka. So that's what it says here, surrounding the Vajrasana, because Vajrasana is the diamond seat. Maybe the stupa wasn't there, but the diamond seat was the main thing they were guarding. Yeah? And those that were spread all over the world as far as his domain, as far as Liul in the north, a total of 84,000 stupas containing relics of the Buddha was built. Then he sent out his command everywhere that daily worship was to be conducted in each of these stupas with thousands of lamps, incense, garlands. The Bodhi tree was worshipped. Bodhi tree next to the seat was worshipped with the scented water and pancha amrita, means 5 nectars, filled with 10,000 pitchers made out of gold, silver, and lapis lazuli. From some distance it was worshipped with 10,000 incense burners and lamps. For 3 months he worshipped it with all the offerings. At Pataliputra, 60,000 arhats who had been invited and offered high seats in honor. He worshipped the sanghas and Arya sanghas who were offered seats on the ground. At the end he offered each monk robes worth a lakh. On the same night, the king along with attendants started on the shoulders of the most powerful yakshas for visiting the stupas. For 7 days completed his pilgrimage of the stupas raised all around the Jambudvipa in honor of the 3 jewels. Everywhere he increased offerings tenfold and offered golden ornaments on each of the stupas containing the relics of the Buddha and the Shravakas. He lavishly decorated the Bodhi tree and all with all kinds of gems. On the 8th day, the king repeatedly prayed, "Let me, by virtue of these pious acts, attain enlightenment and become the supreme among men." And he asked the people to join him earnestly in this prayer. But most of the people started saying that though the king was making great deal of labor, it was going to bear little fruit. Some others said that as there was nothing called Anuttara Bodhi, highest enlightenment, how the prayer of the king would be fulfilled. So they were very much sarcastic. On hearing all this, the king said, "If this prayer of mine is going to be fulfilled, let the great earth shake and flowers shower from the sky." Immediately after he said this, the earth shook and the sky showered flowers. As a result, faith grew in all those skeptical people who also joined the prayer. Now, amazing things are changing. Yeah? Now the Kala Ashoka now is about to become Dharma Ashoka, you know. He worshipped the bhikshus for 3 months during the consecration of the stupas. When this was over, they accidentally remained behind many ordinary bhikshus. The king made big offerings to them in the garden and showed particular respect to an aged monk who sat at the head of the row. This aged monk was extremely foolish and was of little learning. He could not recite even one shloka, even one verse, while among the younger bhikshus were many Pitagadaras, many holders of the whole. They could recite all the sutras and dharanis. After the feast, the monks occupying the lower seat asked the aged monk, "Do you know why the king was making special offering to you?" The elderly monk said, "I do not know it." They said, "But we know this. The king will presently come to you for listening to your sermons. You'll have to deliver a sermon." So they're warning him. This greatly hurt the feelings of the aged monk, and he said, "I received ordination 60 years back, yet I do not know a single shloka. Only if I could guess this before, I would have found another monk capable of delivering the sermon, and I would have offered all the good food to him. However, I have already eaten all these. Now what is to be done?" So he was very unsure. Thus he felt. The deity of the garden thought, "It would be highly improper if the king fails to show respect to this monk." So he came to the monk in human guise and said, "If the king approaches you for sermon, you should say this: O king, since even this earth with its mountains is after all momentary, what is there to think about kingdom? O great king, you should meditate on this. So the local deity taught what to say to the king. Then came the king, and presenting him with a set of robes and in golden color, sat down to listen to the sermon. As the king was already full of reverence, when the aged monk repeated all this, he thought that this was the most fundamental truth and felt ecstasy to think over its significance. So sometimes it's good to remember a couple of verses, even though you don't know anything. Just repeat them and that'll do. The deity of the garden again told the aged monk to not allow the offerings of the devotee to go to waste. So the aged monk took instruction from the acharya, and concentrating intensely on it, attained arhathood in 3 months. He spent the rainy season in the Parijatavana of the Tushita, in the region of 33 gods, returned again to the Sangha and people of Pataliputra. Robes which he received from the king was fragrant with scent of Parijata, and it's all spread around. On being asked by other monks, he said all that happened, and this astonished all. So this almost means reciting. Being able to recite the right words changes the person. Even though they don't know cognitively, he just couldn't believe how he reached there. King also eventually heard all this. He thought the attainment of arhathood, even by an utterly foolish monk, is due to the merit of the doctrine he recited. and by gifts of the robes, impressed by the blessings derived by other gifts, he lavishly entertained again 300,000 monks for 5 years. Now the Ashoka, he offered excellent food and robes to the Sangha and Arhat during the first part of the day, to the Sangha's venerable preceptors during the second part of the day, and the Sangha's during the third part of the day. Toward the end of his life, king took vows to donate 100 crore of gold to the Sangha each time, and built the temples, stupas, and monasteries. And in Kashmir, Togar, he donated in full the Sanghas of Kashmir, Togar, and made offerings of other equal amount. When, however, 4 crores of gold and other material remained, he donated to the Sanghas of Aparatanka. Then the king seriously fell ill. His nephew Vasavadatta, the treasurer of the royal gold, disobeyed the king and refused to pay the remaining gold to the Sanghas of Aparatanka. At that time, king had half a handful of amalakas before him for quenching his thirst. He offered these with great reverence to the Arhats. All the Arhat unanimously exclaimed, "Oh, the king, the virtue of this gift is as much greater than the donation of 96 crores of gold, which you had made while you were ruling." An attendant maid was once fanning him with a yak tail, the handle of which was studded with jewels. She felt sleepy by the midday heat, and the chamara fell down from her hand to the body of king. King thought previously, even the great king used to wash my feet. Even the lowest merchant is insulting me now in this way. Thus he died in anger. Well, that's a dramatic story. That's one dramatic story. So you see, if you spend a lot of time doing violence, that's what exactly you die. You just accidental fall of a fan can kill you. So that's really what they're saying. But what are we talking about here? I want to go over a little bit. Someone captured all the things that Ashoka achieved. Ashoka has achieved in a very in an article here. So I want to finish it off with this, because that story we read is according to Taranatha's story. He gives the name of his father Nimitta, but there are but the other texts tell the father of King Ashoka is King Bindusara, who had 16 wives, and including one that we were talking about, the extramarital one. And so his elder brother plotted to kill Ashoka's wife, and then because of this event, Ashoka was driven by hatred and vengeance. So he killed all his 6 brothers, and all the other violent stuff that he did is all true. The one thing is that after all those things, then he became very, very pious, and then started supporting the Dharma. His reign became more humane, and as he ruled the kingdom according to Dharma. It's said that he was the first king to build major edicts in the whole world, particularly Buddhist inscription all over India, even in Central Asia, some places. You see in India these days, the symbol of Indian government is the 64 petal wheel of Dharma. If you look at Indian national flag, you can see the big disc. And they think it's sun, but actually Dharma wheel. Dharma wheel with 64 spokes, So that was actually King Ashoka's symbol of his rule, Dharma rule. So then he earned the name Dharma Ashoka. And his son, Mahinda, and his daughter become instrumental to spread Dharma. They both attain arahantship. And this story actually says Ashoka himself also became a monk. He was not only devotee of the Buddhist teaching, but he also very kindly supported all other religious traditions. He went on Dhamma Yatra, which is pilgrimage, to the holy 8 places of Buddha quite a few times. Every time he went there, he built the edicts, and he waived the tax to local people, asked them to look after them. And he set up great funds and requisites for the Sangha and supported them handsomely. As I mentioned, his son Mahinda and his daughter both went to Sri Lanka and introduced Dharma. And he became the chief sponsor of the 3rd Buddhist Council. And that became very, very important. There were 9 countries, 9 sort of countries that are under him, so to speak. And Kashmir and Gandhara, with the modern Punjab, is one of them. And then Mahisa Mandala is the south of the Vindhya Mountains. Then Varanasi is Varanasi, and then Aparatanka, then Maharatha, that's probably Maharashtra, and all the way to Bombay area, and down to Himavanta. This all going to the mountains, and even as far as lower Myanmar and Thailand and Java and everywhere, Sri Lanka, all of them became the domain under him. And his son Mahinda converted the Sri Lankan king into Buddhism. And like Padmasambhava was to Tibet, it was King Ashoka's son Mahinda is to Sri Lanka. Incredible, really, and his daughter became very, very instrumental to support her brother to do the same thing. Ashoka became more humane, and he completely devoted all his wealth for the propagation of Dharma. He told his people and that he treated all the people as his children after he converted Dharma. Before he killed all his 6 brothers, remember? Now he is to see everyone as his children. He promised ready access to all his wealth to everyone. He pursued official policy of non-violence, you know. So non-violence, because he used violence so much that it only made him more angry and more prone to attract more enemy, and it got him nowhere until he really saw the Dharma and the power of reading one verse Dharma, power of 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 of, of printing the Dharma on metal plates, throwing in the ocean, how all the Nagas gave the wealth. You know, the Lama Yeshe did the same. Lama Zopa did the same thing. You know, he would spend thousands of dollars and write all the mantras on the copper plate, and then send his disciples to go dive deep into the ocean floor and nail them down, nail them down into the sea to bless all the creatures. And many of the success of Lama Zopa and his activities came because he totally believed in everything like that. So so Lama Zopa wasn't inventing new things, you know. It was done by King Ashoka before, and also it's written in the text that whoever touches, hears, reads, and honors and washes and make offerings to these mantras and scriptures will be receive blessings. So that's exactly we have to do. So therefore, to say Buddhism is not religion, it's kind of a dry philosophy. It's just I don't get it. I don't know why people are trying to say Buddhism is not a religion and hasn't got any beliefs, and you can just cut and paste Buddhism for your liking and leave most of this faith and devotion aspect out. I couldn't believe it. No, King Ashoka was all converted by faith, not by intellectualization. Sure, scientists may find a little bit motivated about Buddhist wisdom and so on, but that will never. Intellect cannot get enlightenment. Pure heart and devotion must go with reason. Of course, it is not recommending blind faith. King Ashoka was converted not by blind faith. He saw it with his own eyes, and all the wrong he did, it only brought him suffering. Then he stopped all the animal sacrifice because he made the sacrifice. He spent good early many years in sacrificing humans and animals in the name of goddess Uma and got him nowhere. So therefore he stopped all the sacrifices in India and therefore promoted ahimsa, that non-violence. Not only that, he also became very great champion to protect the forests, and wildlife reserves were established. And burning forests was prohibited. Hospitals were created for not only man but also for animals. Medical herbs were cultivated. Special wells were dug to the benefit of the local people. Trees were planted and rest houses were built in the middle of the road that is long and have nothing. He took care of the old and ascetic and poor and widowed and prisoners, you know. He particularly set up funds for the widows, and he provided spurning handlooms for widows in form of employment and some way of helping them to make a small living. At the same time, he also encouraged fasting and meritorious deeds to be done by prisoners. You know, the prisoners weren't fed very well anyway, so he actually made the prisoners to go fasting religiously. He urged the criminals to see see the blunders of the crimes, and citizens were all fined for littering or if they did not help in putting out fires. So he was also very, very strong in putting punishment. And he promoted moral education among his people, improved the prison administration. He wrote them inscripted on rocks, you know, humanization of ruthless criminal laws, enforcement of various regulations, and so on. And after going on a pilgrimage to many of the holy places, as I mentioned, like Bodh Gaya he visited, especially on the 10th year of his anniversary enthronement. He went to the Bulgaria and Lumbini and Varanasi. And it says very clearly in the inscription that he came there on the 10th anniversary, and then he came to repent all his wrongdoing and ordered his subject to build all these stupas all around his domain. Pillars and edicts were established in the Buddhist sacred places to mark his visit. Exactly. They are not, these are of course written these days, and you can see the pillar in Lumbini is still standing. And you can see the Ashokan script when he visited. And people at that time, you can see that he was the ruler of that Lumbini area, whether it's called Nepal or India, who don't know. But he asked his citizens he said, we will waive your tax, but you look after this place. Don't let it to be overgrown with the trees. Keep it clean and nice. So that these are all written on the pillar. And then all the local people were exempted from paying taxes to his government since his visit and their agreement to look after the holy places. So that's actually during the reign of Ashoka. Of course, it was all honored. Things only happened for a short period of time. And his visit promoted Buddhism. He made a great proclamation to study of the Dharma. He honored every Sangha. And his conquest of past enemies who became his subject all became Buddhist because of the kingdom surrounding his ancient capital, Patna. And you can see right now, if you go to Patna, the museum in Patna, incredible. You can still see the government is not Buddhist, nor are any of the people in uniform minding it. So they're just minding them for archaeological reasons. No religious devotions there, but slowly it may change. But when you go on to see the relics that are kept in Patna Museum, and they ask for money, in addition to the admission fee, and so it's become like a tool to get money for them, their own livelihood, or officially or not. We have no way to know. Anyway, Ashoka stood out as the pioneer of peace, a universal brotherhood in history. And even many European and Asian historians, they say the age of Asia, Ashoka was the age of light and delight. He was perhaps the first emperor of human history who had taught the lesson of unity, peace, equality, love within and outside his empire. After he repented and become transformed, he truly took refuge in the Dharma. You wouldn't believe how terrible he was. He killed all his 6 brothers. Can you imagine? And not to mention ordinary people. And in Ashoka's own words, Dhamma Vijaya, the moral conquest was principal conquest. He said he was truly conquered. He thought he conquered all the enemies, but he thought he was conquered by nothing but Dharma. So that's a really only true conquest lie within the conquest of self by Dharma. Yeah, the king should first subdue himself and then seek to subdue his foes. How could a king who has not been able to conquer his own self be able to conquer his foes? That's because he realized this. He spent lots of his wealth for religious education. The venerable Upagupta and Dittika and Sudarshana and Yasha and all of those were arhats, They don't need to do anything, If they can make somebody recite one holy verse, it bless the person, instant teacher. So Ashoka built so many stupas. One of the stupas that's still standing intact is Sanchi. Sanchi, while is not on a Buddhist circuit in life of Buddha, but nevertheless it is, in Sanchi the stupa is so huge, almost bigger probably than the Bodhna stupa in Kathmandu. This is a 240 BC stupa. He erected thousands of Buddhist monuments to enshrine the Buddha's relic that keep increasing. He built viharas, and famous Buddhist vihara in Patliputra was named after him, the Ashoka Rama. But these days we don't see where is Ashoka Rama. It's probably under those modern shanty towns in Patna. And he also, it is said that he also helped to develop viharas such as Nalanda. Nalanda is the birthplace and place where Shariputra died. Shariputra died in the room he was born, and that is Nalanda. Because Nalanda is the place where Shariputra was born and died in the same room, and because he predeceased the Buddha actually came and helped to build and consecrate the stupa, Shariputra stupa. And then, of course, Ashoka, now 150 years later, passing over all of them, of course, would go and honor Nalanda. Nalanda. And while the Nalanda those days was not a big learning center, but nevertheless it became sponsored by King Ashoka. And actually the historians do not attribute Ashoka being founder of Nalanda, by the way. But Nalanda is not founded by anyone. Nalanda existed before even Shariputra was born. So Nalanda existed as a village. Nalanda, village of Nalanda exists then. But when we talk about Nalanda University or Nalanda Panditas, these are still way many hundred years afterwards. This is 230 years BC, Ashoka period, And Nagarjuna is disputed as when he came. Even if he came as early as 2nd century AD, that's still about another 400 years after Ashoka. So we have to really keep in context. Dharma was still propagated and kept by those amazing arhats. And these arhats were sponsored by likes of King Ashoka. All the pronouncement of King Ashoka written on the rocks in everywhere, as even in the periphery of his kingdoms. And those edicts were erected at very important centers, like Vaishali, which is really on the main road between Varanasi and Bodh Gaya, for instance. All pilgrims must go through this. Ashoka's edicts were written in his own words, engraved on rocks, and they are still sitting there. People have found Ashoka's edict in India, Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all written in the native language of the place. Ashoka was deliberately engaged in spreading Buddhism through rock and stone and pillar edicts erected in his empire and beyond. The Babru inscription called upon his people to respect, to have faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And it's incredible. Asking people to have faith in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. That was engraved in rocks. And that's also in Ashoka, due to repent his misdeeds, he also made proclamation for people to develop morality in relation to respect to your parents, elders, teachers, friends, servants, ascetics, and as his filial duty, He also encouraged generosity, harmlessness towards other living beings, moderation in spending and saving, treating others properly, and be well learned in other religious traditions. And Ashoka became very famous, very famous as the Dharma Ashoka because he did all of this. But if not everybody become born pure like that, Ashoka was terrible at the beginning. He's called Kala Ashoka. And then he became the Chandaka Ashoka. Then he became Dharma Ashoka. Remember? So it's very important the saints are not born pure. Saints are usually ex-murderers, sort of brutal killers. And like Angulimala. Milarepa, for instance, in Tibet, is not a kind of mass murderer, but the day he did, he killed 18 of them. And so on. So Dharma tames people's wrath and anger once they are faced with their own demons, and only Dharma can make them to change. The texts that were favored by Ashoka, how well loved and important Ashoka was, all found in the Dipavamsa and Mahavamsa, all the old life stories of the Arhats, and incredible. That's why Ashoka, even in Tibetan Buddhism, we have a little bit to remember Ashoka. Ashoka is early. It's 110 years after Buddha. That's very early, remember? So not to remember that means you don't know. To remember that you know what he did as how he changed his life around and became a true Dharma king. There are many texts in which the contribution of Ashoka to the Dharma, and that is during the period of the 4th and 5th patriarch. This is 200 BC. Ashoka himself ruled for 40 years. After his death, which according to Taranatha, he accidentally died with the fall of a handle of a fan, not like a modern electrical fan, but his maid dropped the fan on his head, and sometimes smallest accident can kill you. So you don't need to have a terminal illness to die. You just need a fan to fall on your head. Those days fans are not a heavy thing. It's just a little golden fan. She was doing this, and she fell asleep. The fan dropped on his head. After his death, it is said that his dynasty, which is called Mauryan dynasty, lasted just another 50 more years. It's incredible how things come to an end. His children, as I mentioned, what reason his dynasty didn't last as a royal, because his son and daughter, son Mahinda and daughter Sangamita, played an important role to spread Buddhism, themselves entering into the Sangha and went to Sri Lanka, and Ashoka appointed his son, other son Kulana, as successor. Ashoka himself died in 232 before Christ. So it's very important that this early period the Dharma was supported. Mauryan dynasty ended during the rule of Brihadrata, that's in 185 BC. Without King Ashoka's effort to spread Buddhism in neighboring countries, the teaching of Buddha would not have remained intact till now. In any country, let alone in Tibet. This is way before Nagarjuna, way before Aryadeva, or any of the authors that came in the heydays, in the golden period of Nalanda University. But Nalanda University is founded in 6th, 7th century. When you visit there, they tell you which period that was. So there was no university of Nalanda during King Ashoka's period. Nalanda simply was a pilgrimage spot because Shariputra was born and passed away in the place. So it's very important to remember and identify what the Buddhism was that kept so long and so highly revered. During those days, not through intellectualism, through faith, through devotion, through all the arhats being able to perform true miracles. And at the same time, remember, during those days, they didn't have any distraction. They just had to watch the cows' udders for milk and, and the rice field for crops, or maybe mango on the trees. That's all. They didn't have any gadget to be distracted, any shows to go to, any fast car to drive. They don't have any of those things. So therefore, people were very, very easily attractable to Dharma. So that's why we must know that it was an incredible period when people are so devoted, and many attain adulthood in no time. And during those days, even the ordinary monk, how he converted, how his influence actually played a role, how the words got out, the kind of blessing and power of the Dharma. So it's a very clear history that Buddhism in those periods was mainly promoted by faith, devotion in this triple gem, not through intellectualism. Teachings, they just have to chant. They just were Shravakas. Shravaka means listeners and tellers. They just listened to the sermon to their elders, and then students remembered. Students remember word for word. Yesterday I was teaching in Sydney, and I was talking very fast, I think. During the talk, someone said, "Oh, what was that you said?" And I can't remember the sentence myself. But Fong, a Vietnamese girl sitting in the front, she has taken notes. She's all written out everything. She's written out everything. So it's quite a difference, isn't it? These days, people are fast note takers. on top of the recording, by the way. Anyway, it's really good to think about the period of King Ashoka. We haven't finished with him. We still got a few more things to go about Ashoka in the another session in the future. Next few weeks, I'm traveling all over the place, but we will still have the session on with the meditation and the either we will have some play some tapes or have some others run the sessions. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone. That's all for today. Thank you, everyone. Hey, who's there? Greg, who's that with you? Is Kempo there? Kuzu Zambo. Tashidele. You are. Can you unmute Kempo? Sorry. Nalanda. Thank you, everyone.